Hey, this is Todd. Recently, I had an opportunity to sit down with our district attorney, Robert Turner Jr., and have a lengthy conversation with him about a number of issues that are important to our area, to the Black Belt in general, the 4th Judicial District more specifically, and even more specifically, Dallas County and the Selma area. I've divided the hour and 15-minute long interview into segments so that it'll be easier to watch. This is the second segment with the interview of Robert Turner Jr. I hope you find it interesting and informative. And thanks for watching Selma Sun and Black Belt News Network.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you'd mentioned murder. Let's talk a little bit about the murders in Dallas and in the surrounding counties. How many have we had so far this year?
Yeah. So this year, I was talking to Chief Fulford earlier in the week, and that Selma City had 7 homicides. And then there was, today's Friday the 30th.
Yes.
And I think there was another that was reported. It was initially an assault first degree. And I think that defendant subsequently, the victim succumbed to the injuries. It was an assault case, a fight. So I think that's going to make 8 for the city of Selma. And we're approaching September. Whereas last year this time, 2023, I think that number was in the 20s.
Okay, for Selma alone.
For Selma alone.
Now, what about the whole
county? And then
county?
the county, I think the county is working on 3.
Wow.
Yeah, so the violent crime, that's still too high.
Oh yeah, 1 is too much, but
for a city this size, but we are below. We're
moving in the right direction.
We're underpacing the numbers from 2023.
That's what's important, is that you're moving in the right direction.
Right, and then that's always something that people that do what we do, you don't talk about that as a badge of honor. You don't glorify it, because at the drop of a dime, something else can happen. Last March 2023, I want to say we were cruising along at a fairly good rate. Crime had been relatively silent, and then we had 1 week where I think that there were 3 or 4 over the course of a weekend. So
I see. Yeah.
Those are always relative situations. They're touch and go, but overall, if you looked at it from a strictly statistical standpoint, the numbers are down.
That's very good. Let's speak of some specifics. We had a shooting incident with a teenager, and you recently held a meeting, I understand, with some community leaders, police, whatnot, and principals, whatnot, to come up with ways to curb this violence. What are some of the things that you have suggested, and are there any of them that are going to be implemented?
Yeah, I can't speak to implementation.
Okay.
But just to speak on that meeting, a lot of the things that we discussed, we left specific names and situations out.
But
we as you alluded to, there has been a surge as of late in violent crimes,
especially among our young kids.
That have been committed by people that are juvenile age.
Yeah.
And some of these children are still students in our schools. So I think the adult approach and the professional approach, and it wasn't my idea to call the meeting. I can't. I want to say, if I were to give credit to anybody, it would probably be our superintendent of schools, Bird,
Dr.
in
Bird?
conjunction with, I think district judge was involved, who handles all juvenile court matters. The mayor, just to give you an idea of who was present, the mayor's office was fully, involved.
Right.
The chief of police was present, and several of their investigators were present. The school resource officers were present. The superintendent of the city schools was present, as well as many members of his administration, including the school resource officers. The members of the juvenile probation office were there. Selma Center for Nonviolence was present. We had several representatives from the mental health community that were present. It was basically an all stakeholders in meeting.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
And it was really good for everyone to introduce themselves in one place setting and really fully discuss what our various roles are.
Mm-hmm.
Because to be honest, what we're supposed to do when we're faced with crises involving juveniles, our duties are laid out for us in the Alabama Code.
Yeah.
And so really what we have to do is to make sure that we communicate effectively with one another so that we can talk about what you're supposed to do, what I'm supposed to do when we run into these situations, so that we can work collaboratively and communicate with one another on addressing the situation that we have at hand. So there were meetings held Thursday, a follow-up on Friday, that was actually mediated, moderated by an outside consultant, which was good. And I think that really helped the flow of the conversation, and it kept us on task and on time.
Right.
You know, so that we weren't just there and people playing the blame game. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
So that was Thursday and Friday. And some of the things that came out of that meeting, I think spilled over into what we had happened on yesterday, where there was a memorial service that was held for the 16-year-old that lost his life last year, and Morgan Academy students were present as well, because they suffered a loss, even though it was a completely different set of circumstances. There was a memorial service held at Selma yesterday, and so what we see here, you know, even though there are a lot of reports about, you know, how it went down, some of the events that happened, in my view, change is always good if it's working toward the advancement of some common objectives and some solutions. So the fact that people who in the past have erected walls and not communicated and pointed fingers, the fact that we have within a span of 14 days had all of these stakeholders in the same building at the same time has been a huge positive for the area.
Yes, I do believe that was a positive. And having John Grayson there helping to moderate, because he brings so much positivity to this area.
He does.
I mean, he's some kind of amazing. Of course, during the we talked about the different things that you had suggested to implement, or the different things that were suggested at these meetings, maybe I should say. What are some of those things, and have they talked about it all? Putting in
so one of the things that, from my perspective, I can speak on, you know, some of the things that I've suggested. And looking at some of the issues that we're facing as a community from the district attorney's office, is I've suggested that we, you know, look at imposing a curfew on teenagers, not permanently and not forever. You know, not meaning if you come to Selma, your kids will have to abide by these restrictions. But the suggestion was that on Sundays through Thursdays, that there be a 9:00 p.m. curfew imposed upon all children that are 17 years old or younger. And there would be exceptions. There would be exceptions for people for young people who might have jobs. And for those that have jobs, they generally have work permits. But as long as they had their work permit and they could show where they work, they would be exempted. There will be exemptions for children that are accompanied by their parents or their documented guardians.
Exactly. Right.
They would be exempted, of course. And then on the weekends, you know, because we've got high school football going on.
Right. Yeah, this time of year.
Eventually we'll have high school basketball going on. But for the immediate short term, you know, while we have retaliation going on, there are a lot of retaliatory shootings, retaliatory fights that are going on. It would help law enforcement if they were to have some help from the community. So on weekends, the curfew would be raised to 10, and added to those exemptions would be the cheerleaders, the bands, the auxiliaries, you know, that are traveling to and fro and an athletic
Certainly.
context,
Yeah.
contest.
And generally they're accompanied by adults
That's
too,
right.
anyway.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
And so, those are just some things. A lot of times people are, we're America. People have rights, and
Certainly.
they don't want governmental intervention, but to sit back and watch some of the things that are happening, there are just too many juveniles that are
That's the thing too.
unaccompanied.
And you're talking about juveniles here.
Yes.
Juveniles. I can remember when I was growing up, and I'd tell my mom and dad, "I'm gonna write a letter to the president because you're my rights."
Right.
My dad said, "You know what? You don't have any rights yet. You haven't earned them.
Right.
You're a kid.
Right.
I tell you what to do. This house is not a democracy. Until you're 18 or you're out of my house, this is a dictatorship, and I'm the boss."
That's right.
And sometimes adults have to step in and say, "Okay, that's enough. Everybody separate. When you cool down, we'll let you play again."
That's right.
And that's really what a curfew. That's all you're doing.
And then the other part of it is that the proverb. There's a proverb out that says it takes a village to raise a child.
Mm-hmm.
So as villagers, especially elected villagers,
yeah,
we have to be able to fill in the gaps, and
Sure.
we have to problem solve or troubleshoot, and then problem solve after we've done the troubleshooting. The troubleshooting is that there are too many shootings.
yeah,
And the age of these shooters are getting younger and younger.
right.
And I'm certainly not one of those people to say lock everybody up. I don't believe in that.
No,
But at the same time, when you have a situation that is abnormal, we need to take some abnormal steps.
Right.
So in addition to the curfew, one of the other things that I had suggested that we do, and we're working on that now. I mean, we're going through the Alabama code books, looking at stuff. In some of these cases, we're finding there are, where I come from, a lot of times people say that parents have to stop upholding their children their wrongdoing.
Mm-hmm.
So there are provisions where we can charge the parents
I love that idea. I'm a parent,
and
I
hold
love
them
that idea.
responsible for some of the things that their children are permitting. So that's another thing that's we're going to start seeing escalating. We're going to start holding some parents responsible where we can and when we can.
Which a lot of this
juvenile
goes back
behavior.
to that. It goes back to the fact
That's right.
that there's something going through our communities, not just Selma,
Right.
that is teaching children that it's okay to solve a problem by fighting or by shooting
Right.
or stabbing. And that's not what, and I agree. I think parents are where it starts.
That's
The
right.
house is the first school. And we got to change what's here first, and that goes back to mom and
That's
dad.
right. And one of the other things that I talked about, and this always draws controversy. I think that it's too easy for individuals to obtain semi-automatic weapons in this country. And I know that we have a right to bear arms. I don't have any problem with that. But let's look at what we do statewide and nationwide. Let's say, for example, I teach my son how to drive a car when he's 10. And he's a responsible driver. He knows how to drive. He's been driving since he's 10. He's tall for his age. He knows all the rules of the road. But before I put him on that road to drive, he has to be of suitable age and he has to obtain a driver's license. If he gets pulled over when he's 13 and he doesn't have a driver's license, there are going to be consequences.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, there will be.
And one of the reasons that we say that he needs a driver's license, I guess the policy argument is he needs to understand the rules of the road.
Right.
He has to have he has to prove that he's passed a certain level of proficiency and he's of suitable age to understand. Guns are just as deadly and violent, and they're causing more deaths. One of the leading causes of death of African American youth is gun violence, not car accidents. It's gun violence. But in Alabama right now and in many other states, we have done away with the requirement that people have permits. So I'm not sitting here saying that people should not have them completely, but we need to analyze this and see if what we are doing as a village, See, what happens in the village is that there are so many people that say that doesn't apply to me, so why should I have to suffer? But if we're a real village and we're looking at this thing holistically and seeing what's happening in our cities, what's causing the fear mongering, the fear mongering, and what's causing division, we can't keep saying that this is a poor folks problem, or this is a white folks problem, or this is a black folks problem. We got to stop doing that. We have to look at it and say, this is an eyesore for us all, and it's affecting us all. So what are the solutions? For me to sit back as a district attorney and say, I think that there's nothing wrong with these kids walking around with Dracos, and there's nothing wrong with them walking around with AR-15s, and I'm not a big gun enthusiast, but I still believe that people have the right to carry them. But I just think that you need to be able to establish, either through some courses, some certifications, some age requirements, or what have you. Show some responsibility. The background checks for people with mental health issues, or there just needs to be a check and balance for that. And I will always maintain that position.
I'll have to check, but I believe there is an age requirement to own a firearm.